and showing her signs of defensive behavior towards the pressure of the lead rope. And sometimes people go, well, I wonder what happened or what could have gone on, or, all these different things. It doesn't really matter what has happened in the horse's past, not out of having a lack of empathy for what they've gone through, but in the sense of like, people get really stuck on, but why is the horse responding as they are right now? As opposed to recognizing this is the horse's response right now. And this is the information that is telling you how things were done in the horse's past. Meaning that this horse, however pressure was used with her, towards her, at her, on her, around her, it caused total defensiveness. And so she would mentally panic, she would avoid, or she would try and run you over. Even though she wasn't that big of a horse, she was quite, I'm going to say, bouncy. And one of the things that I think the video shows as a good example of is there are a lot of people, and I've posted it on multiple platforms several times now, where a lot of people talk about emotions. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you stayed so calm. And people have to understand, when a horse has never been allowed to think or to function, and they're defensive towards everything that the human has basically done to them in the past, the horse is living in a anticipative state. They are constantly in fear, and they are full of physical tension in the sense of trying to protect themselves. So the horse can either flee and avoid and try and get away, or try and get you out of the way, or they tend to shut down. This horse was not one that would shut down. So whatever sort of level of expressiveness or bouncy or flamboyance or flailing that a lot of people would be, I'm going to say, emotionally triggered by. They'd get angry. They would use words like, she's being disrespectful. They'd come up with this whole human story. And instead, I try and remind folks that the horse is doing the best she can. And if we come at it from an empathetic approach, I'm not just going to stand there and leave the horse to say, well, maybe she'll sort it out, because we already see that this horse is in a dysfunctional state. So when she's highly fearful and anticipative, she's not going to suddenly start thinking, and she's not going to suddenly be able to become reasonable and rational in her behavior. That's just not going to happen. So instead, the communication that I am offering in this moment, without having, we'll say, the ideal preface and working with her loose and getting her mind and all these things, the reality of the moment is she's on the halter and lead rope. It's something that's caused defensiveness and triggers her from previous experiences. How can I start a conversation with her that doesn't escalate and trigger her emotions to get bigger, more dramatic, which then you would see mimicked in bigger, dramatic, perhaps dangerous behaviors? And part of this is helping these horses find that there are boundaries of behaviors that work and those that don't. And so as I'm taking a hold of the lead rope, I'm not just hanging on it. I'm not just waiting to see what the horse is going to do. I'm going to be giving very specific, how about can you, in the sense of asking her to look, or maybe asking her to drop her head, or maybe asking her to not push forward, like where she's taking her nose and trying to push my hand out of the way. And each little piece that I'm communicating, I'm going to assess her feedback, and then I'm going to address it. And I'm going to follow through and address each of her what I call counter offers, or the behaviors that she offers that I did not ask for, until she lets go of those and she tries, or she finds, she searches for what it is that I am asking. And then I'm going to give a pause. Now, when you have a horse that's emotionally triggered and mentally anticipative, that pause may only be a nanosecond, because they're already ready to urgently move on to the next thing, because they're in kind of survival mode. And so they're just, sort of like mentally bouncing all over the place, flailing. So the conversation, the communication has to happen very rapidly. And I find for most people, when they handle a horse like this, they get emotionally triggered, they get stuck in their story, they get stuck in, but why is the horse acting like this? They get stuck in distraction of other things that are irrelevant of addressing the horse in real time in the moment. And so the initial, perhaps slightly defensive behavior starts escalating, becoming more dramatic, becoming more potentially dangerous. Then the human is sort of reacting after the fact. Then they critique the horse for the behaviors that the horse is coming up with, because the human didn't offer the horse any guidance or specificity. And you can see how very quickly it evolves or devolves into a vicious cycle. So that's a little background on this video clip. Hopefully that can help folks better understand what's going on. And again, it doesn't really matter what in her past has caused it. What we have to look at is meeting the horse right here, right now, in the moment of where they are mentally and emotionally, which is affecting them physically. And if we start with that approach, we have a lot better chance of helping the horse learn how to work through a perhaps triggering scenario and have a new experience and find a different outcome, which then proves to the horse it's not going to be what they have previously experienced with the human. But if all we do is leave them flailing, or we try and be super polite and we go super passive and we try and wait it out, we're not giving the horse any new experiences. So despite our kindness, they still are going to be anticipative, fearful, and defensive of us. So we have to be proactive, we have to be specific, we have to be supportive, and we have to remember that all of this chaos has nothing to do with us. The horse is doing the best they can.